color than mine, but if you would get out your schedule for Arms and Nemesis and Evaluation Essay, talking more about the book. So we're past March 15th. What's the importance of March? What's the historical importance of March 15th? Ides of March. We're now to March 17th. What's the non-historical importance of March 17th?
St. of Ireland.
St. Patrick's Day.
That they actually call it.
More myth than history, but it's a fun story, and you get to drink.
Actually,
And
serious.
cornbread and cabbage.
Serious.
Right. So this is where we're at today. This is where we need to be Tuesday, and we're gonna concentrate and help each other make that progress to get to Tuesday in an effective way. For some reason you did not bring a discovery draft today. Do make sure that you get that to me this week. Remember the draft policy. You will not be able to turn in a final draft for credit if you don't turn in a discovery draft this week. Most people did, and I saw lots of good progress, so that's pretty cool to see. Tuesday, what we're shooting for Tuesday, when you bring in an advanced draft, bring in 5 copies, because that's the draft you're going to give each other feedback on. And as a matter of fact, some version of your advanced draft is the draft I'm going to give you feedback on as well. It could be the Tuesday draft, it could be a later draft. So you've got 5 copies to share on Tuesday, and your goal is complete content, complete source use. That doesn't mean you're done saying everything you want to say, but you want to have a complete enough draft for 2 reasons. One is you're making very substantial progress. In other words, that all your content there, completely fleshed out or not. And that's also going to be beneficial because that's what your classmates and I are going to give you feedback on. Not on partial content. I don't really see the purpose of doing that today. But on a draft that is pretty complete, at least it identifies and has development for all the major content sections that we've been talking about in class. You should make sure you're using 3 sources in that draft and they are fully documented. But do you have any questions about that? As a reminder, and Sarah's already reminded you, next Thursday is a snow day. I can feel it getting colder already, so we don't want you driving in that awful weather a week from today, and so we do not meet as a class that day. Instead, we have given you the gift of time. Sarah has something for you to do at 3:55 on Thursday, and you can also use that time to write the feedback. I haven't given you these instructions yet, but now on Tuesday, I'll give you the guidelines, and you'll have developed those too for giving each other feedback by the end of the week. We are giving you lots of time next week. Any schedule questions? Feel the cold coming on yet? Okay.
Can it be like really cold?
Could be. We had lots of snow when it's 30s.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the quiz. And I want to talk about the quiz not just in terms of the answers, but these aspects of the novel that I asked you to talk about could also represent in terms of reviewing the novel. I'm not sure the first question really pertains to that. Most of you got that right, so I don't think we need to talk about that. Nick got that wrong. He wanted extra credit for spelling his name right, didn't he? Question number 2, who killed Lucius Licinius? L. Okay. There were some interesting spellings of that name, but if you got close, you got full credit. So again, now everybody's finished the book, or is going to finish the book. What'd you think? When you found out who the murderer was, okay, what'd you think? As a mystery novel, and now that you've finished it, but as you were finishing it, you found out it is Faustus Fabius. Did you go, or Faustus Fabius? Didn't see that coming? What an intriguing choice. What was your reaction? Peter, what was your reaction?
I should have seen that coming a long time ago.
Oh, okay. So you didn't, but when you got there, you go, all right. So you think the clues were there? You think Saylor built in the clues? At least enough? So Peter says clues were there, and a reader could have figured that out on his or her own. Other thoughts, other reactions?
Like there was enough of the story to lead you away from it.
Okay, so one part of this conversation is, were there enough clues that looking back, you the reader could say, oh, okay, in some way or another, the clues add up that in other words, Stephen Saylor created an ending to the crime in this way that is logical and fits the clues. But I think you were also suggesting something about his character, the nature of his person, weren't you? Keep going with that. Okay. So, but in evaluation, it's all personal, okay? And what we're talking is the aesthetics here. We're talking about the personal reaction and personal opinions that you form to a work of art, because that's what this is. It's a novel, a work of the imagination, and we're looking at this novel as, right now, as a mystery, right? And we all found out who the murderer is. Other thoughts about that point, about whether Faustus Fabius, when revealed as the murderer, makes sense into the type of person he is? One thought is, maybe not so much. Go ahead, Caleb. Right.
So for him to be...
So one reader thinks, this isn't what an optimist would do. Is that what you're saying, Caleb?
So does that make it seem like he's leaning more toward being, unlike the moment when he was talking about the art and the statues, and Momius it was, that messed up, put the head,
I
right?
personally thought that he
See?
talked with disdain about people who didn't know art and how he was slamming the Senate and doing a bunch of other popular.
So on the one hand, on the surface, maybe he projects this optimist image, but underneath that, you think he's really more, in his personal life, more popular. And this is interesting, we've never had this discussion before in this class, would this kind of murder, you know, which is essentially he's covering up this other crime he's been committing, right? Does that fit more with an optimist, more with a populaire, or do character types matter? And you had your hand up a second ago, was you going to talk about something else?
Just,
Okay.
I mean, does it really depend if he's or popular to be a murderer?
Could he
Okay.
be a popular or unpopular?
So in your opinion, it doesn't matter which type he fits into. Whereas for other readers, it might matter. It might explain his motivation, right? Might explain the kinds of decisions he made that led him to murder.
That's why he's selling these weapons this long.
He's a patrician, but he's a pretty poor patrician, isn't he?
Yes, he doesn't like it.
And so Peter's point is, it doesn't matter what kind of person you are, what kind of character type you fit. If you're a greedy person, the greed is enough of a motivation to explain it. Okay, those are some good opinions. What can we do with this? If you wanted to use the reader's learning that Faustus Fabius turned out to be the murderer, how could you use that in an evaluation of the novel? What kind of criteria could that be formed into?
The surprise ending.
Okay, that is part of, okay, so the way the crime unravels and is solved, all right, and to you that's a surprise ending? So a surprise, who likes that? Who thought it was a good surprise? Wow, that was really, gosh, I never suspected him, and who not so much? Well, that's like half and half. Who's right and who's wrong? How do we
It's an opinion, you can't be right or wrong.
It is opinion, isn't it? Okay, so what's going to matter in terms of the actual evaluation? Because remember, you're writing for someone who hasn't read the novel yet, and you don't want to reveal too much. But in talking about the solving of the crime, what kind of criteria could we identify there? It's, you know, you can use the idea that it is a surprise ending, but even more specifically.
That it's intriguing.
Okay, and that's the opinion. Let's go with just the identification of the criteria. What is it we're actually talking about here? And we're talking about Stephen Saylor, how Stephen Saylor has finished the sentence. Okay, all right.
Ineffectively, depending on your viewpoint.
Right, and about half of you, I bet, said pretty ineffectively, and the other half maybe effectively. Okay, so Amber's point is one of the criteria you could set up, and this is what we're doing. We're talking through these possibilities. Is the clues that were available to the reader that set up or could have set up this character as the murderer, either effectively, if you believe so, or ineffectively. There's also the nature of the surprise, the fact that, did anybody think it was Faustus Fabius all along? A couple of people did. Okay, so you weren't surprised. Who was surprised? Who went, wow, I never thought about him. I put my hand up too. I've read it 25 times, and every time, wow. So what about the nature of surprise and mystery? Thinking about the author's craft and the development of a mystery, how could we turn the revealing of the murderer, which is what we're talking about, into a criteria? Is it important? Caleb, go ahead.
One that I kind of thought of was like, because Gordianus.
Okay, so Caleb's point could be a review could look at Stephen Saylor's creation of Gordianus and how Gordianus uses his thinking process to either solve or not solve the murder. Okay, absolutely. So how Gordianus, I'm just going to write works because there's no room, as a detective. Could one argue that who thought Gordianus is a pretty good detective in terms of how Stephen Saylor developed him? That you thought, you know, as a character, he's a pretty believable detective. Who thought, not so much. Problems, flaws. Okay, interesting. So we can have completely different opinions about the same criteria. We're probably going to come back to this in a second, but does everybody see what we're doing? We're talking about how you can select aspects of the novel now that we're finished, we can talk about it and say, okay, that interested me. I have a fairly strong opinion about this one way or another. Then how do we turn that into a criteria for evaluating that part of the novel? What were Echo's first words? It's not a trick question, but there were different ways to answer the question. What were the? What's that?
I wasn't sure because
When is the first time he actually speaks?
Out lound, you mean?
Out loud.
That we get to know.
Technically, when he was born, since he became...
That's outside of the novel.
That's true.
Yeah,
But we don't
okay.
know. But
And we
in the novel,
don't
in the
know what his
novel,
words were.
When is the first time someone overhears it? Okay, even before that. Does anybody remember?
Oh, when he's talking in his sleep.
He's talking in his sleep and Eel overhears
Oh,
him.
yeah, dang it.
But do we understand, do we know what he said?
No.
No, okay. I mean, if you work, nobody worked with that. So occasionally students in the past have pointed to that, you know.
Work on Ia as Oscar Popular.
I wasn't planning to, but we can. What are his most direct words that we actually hear, we as the characters and other characters, we as the readers and other characters hear him speak? What does he say? Even before that. Very first words.
No.
Papa, Papa!
Oh,
He
that's
says,
it.
Papa, Papa, watch out! There's a man with a spear.
Yeah.
He's going to throw the spear at you. And by the way, I'm not mute anymore. I think he has that. Something like that. Okay. So yeah. All right. So Echo does warn his father. And if you got some version of that, you got that. Anything we can do with Echo? Go
I'm
ahead.
kind of intrigued by Stephen.
He's a unique character,
Very
isn't he?
complex character.
Yeah. Good work. Okay. He's a unique, complex character.
If you keep reading these, you get to continue to see Echo and Mito.
Yeah, they grow up in the series. Yeah, it's interesting. Echo goes on to become kind of his father's right-hand man. Then he takes over the family business. But you said he's complex. In what ways? Okay, so he's unique in a couple of ways. He's mute and he's been adopted off the streets. So keep going. So, do you find him interesting in his character? You like that complexity? So if you were going to talk about Stephen Saylor's development of this unique, complex character, how would you be evaluating the novel? What would you be talking about?
Like how he makes the character realistic compared to other ones that actually were.
Okay. Does Stephen Saylor create realistic characters? So one reader says sometimes. What's your sense, Anna? Would you? And realistic in what way? What makes him realistic for you? And anybody else can pitch in here too. Did anybody else find Echo to be a particularly interesting character? He stood out for you as you read?
It's just so the core of so many conversations without being given a single line.
He's always listening, isn't he? And we never, I mean, Gordianus, the narrator, will tell us kind of what Echo's saying
His
sometimes.
expressions.
Yeah, he has expressions, he has the hand signals, he can tap them and stuff like that. So in his own way, he's a very minor character because he's lurking in the background. But
He's
he's
very
always
present.
there. He's always there, isn't he? And does he turn out to be an important character? Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like even with the cult thing, though,
Oh, so he's crucial to the plot, but in ways he can't express and we can't understand. Do you like that, Allison? Is that interesting? Is it unique? Is it,
that's interesting. It's
right?
hard.
Because yeah, it limits that character's ability to do anything,
Right.
participate. But then he brings him in the end, and again, in kind of a surprising way. So when we're talking about the development of unique, complex characters, whatever you think about Echo or other characters, how are we evaluating the novel? What genre are we looking at? Here we're obviously looking at it as a mystery. What are we looking at it as here? Work of fiction, yeah. Because any work of fiction, any novel develops characters, okay? So we can look at Echo as a person. Doesn't matter if he's an ancient Roman, right? Doesn't really matter you know, that he's the son of Gordianus, although maybe that does here. But again, in terms of Stephen Saylor's development of complex, interesting characters, we could use him as an example. Any other characters in the story stand out for you after finishing it as either particularly interesting and well-crafted or not? Or maybe the opposite. Any other characters stand out for you as you think Stephen Saylor did a really good job of creating that character? Okay, Bethesda, she's only there at the very beginning, very end, but still, as a minor character, why does she interest you?
Well, because, and then she gets to become a free woman, and then she gets to be married.
And then she becomes pregnant, and yeah, she goes from slave at the beginning to who's important in Bethesda's evolution from slavehood to freedom to wife to motherhood? Gordianus is part of that too. That kind of interests me. Because, I mean, just to express my own opinion, I think one of the things Stephen Saylor does well is he develops Gordianus' character. And one of the ways he develops it, I think very subtly, is Gordianus' attitude towards slavery. I mean, he's not a harsh, mean man at the beginning, right?
Right.
But he's a slave owner, right? And his lover, the woman he sleeps with, is his slave. So that's, in its own way, that's a forced relationship.
And he's making a point not to have children with her.
Yes, because she is a slave.
Yep.
But over time, as Gordianus is exposed to this crime, he's on the Fury. Remember what he saw in the Fury? He's involved in trying to save the lives of 99 innocent slaves. Do you think Gordianus' beliefs and attitudes about slavery grows, changes, develops? So there we might, and I'm not telling you what you should think, but I'm thinking, another way that, and we talk about this a little bit, that any novel uses characters is often to develop them. So they grow and change in some way. That, to me, is a realistic, believable, interesting character, because people are supposed to grow. People are supposed to change. Fiction is ultimately about us, human beings. Did anybody strike you, any character strike you as not well developed? Anybody finish the novel going, that character, not believable, not realistic, not a real person? Anybody? I've had students mention Marcus Mummius in the past. Any thoughts about
That's
Mummius?
just because they felt like they had to say something.
And his character, from the very beginning to the very end, sure develops a lot, doesn't it? I've heard people say that I think it's a plausible argument. Maybe he develops too much. He's not really believable. He's too nice a guy in the end. I'm not sure I agree with that,
I don't
but
agree with that at all.
I don't agree with that at all either.
I feel like after he,
so for one reader, Moebius's growth and personal development is believable. He's kind of like the Grinch, right? Grinch starts out with this tiny little heart, wants to squash all the
Always
losers.
had a heart.
also the fact,
Grinch is not believable.
Right.
also the fact too, like he even said in the epilogue that he doesn't remain much in contact with Crassus, and Crassus was probably always kind of like, putting him in his place. He kind of, took that position.
So for you,
Crassus.
Marcus Mummius's development as character is believable and realistic?
I think it's believable, but only to, I think, to a few people, because he even said that he felt like out of all the people in Rome that he can trust Gordianus the most and be worth talking to him, whereas I think if he's going to go out, just some random Roman streets, he's not going to be like that. He's going to be his own kind of. But I think he knows how to open up to people who is worth opening up to.
And you find that, in terms of Stephen Saylor's development of that character, you find that realistic? That somebody like Marcus Mummius would only open up to a couple of people?
I feel like.
Okay. Very interesting.
Sound kind of weird, like the Boston Spot, had a little bit more character development.
I think he's a flat character. I agree 100%. To me, he's
Because
too
most I know about him came at the end of
Right.
Crassus explaining why he did this. Because in the beginning you get a little bit about him, like, yes, he's a patrician, yes, he's the lover of Crassus, but then that's it. Then he kind of disappears because Gordianus is busy with everyone else. And
Right.
That's why I kind of assumed that Faustus Fabius was going to be the killer.
Oh. Because he was off to
He was
the
never
side.
there. He was always on the
Very
side.
interesting.
A lot of times in mystery things, it's kind of like a theme to have the first character that shows up and disappears be the murderer. That's pretty much every single mystery you watch. The first character that shows up and then disappears right away is like,
Well, that's
So,
the guy.
so for you, Gavin, it's too formulaic.
yeah,
He's plugged into a formula.
yeah.
And paused.
I
Yeah.
think it was a little bit of a surprise, but then I thought about it, like, well, we never saw the characters. He was obviously doing something. So.
Right. He just doesn't have that many lines. He's just not there. He pops in very quickly for me.
He's also like kind of like a standout character from the rest of them, because like all the people in the manor are people that are kind of like at the top of their field. You know, they're all famous actors, famous painters, famous philosophers,
interesting point.
and he's just a subpar patrician.
Yeah, how do you get to be a patrician? Born.
I don't know why he's here. I think there's Stephen Billow with all these other people that are so really.
So in other words, why is he invited to the party?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, great. So you see what we're doing here, right? Kind of fleshing out some issues in the novel and talking about how we can evaluate it. Identify a real Roman from the novel. One was super easy. Marcus Crassus, because you all knew that from the beginning, right? Who else turned out to be real?
Marcus Mummius.
Marcus Mummius. Where'd you find that out?
When I researched stuff to write my review.
But in reading the novel, where did you find that out?
In the resources in the back of the book.
In the author's note. You had to go all the way to the end. You had to look at Stephen Saylor's picture, and if you looked at it long enough, he would say to you, just like they have in the Harry Potter books, he would say to you, Marcus Mummius was real. So I said you had to go to the very end. So what about that? Why put real Romans in with fictional characters? Well, what's that? I mean, Marcus Crassus kind of makes sense, right? Or does that? Why include real Romans in a novel that's mostly fiction?
Because he included part of what really happened with them in the book when Mummius is... There was a thing where he lost... People ran away, and then stuff happened with Spartacans, and Crassus killed all of them and lined them up along the Appian Way. I think there was 6,000. And that was a true thing that happened.
So what about that? What's the value? What would be the value of plugging in real Roman history and real Roman characters into this fictional novel? Why do that? Because he obviously did that, not just characters, but events.
Yeah, I think with Crassus.
Which would be more believable to you as readers? Marcus Crassus as a real Roman who's incredibly ambitious, and you know that was true. You know, we know the basic facts about him that Stephen Saylor develops are true. He was really that much of an asshole.
He really was.
And he was really that power hungry, and he really was the one who put down the Spartan revolt. Which would be, to you as readers, the real Marcus Crassus? Or let's say none of that ever really happened, and Stephen Saylor made up this character asshole named Marcus Crassus. Would it matter either way? The fact that he's using real history to build in plot and character?
It just makes, if you're going to write a historical novel and not use real history,
Are you saying the more real the better?
yes.
Who disagrees? Who thinks it doesn't matter? It's fiction anyway. Might as well just make up everything.
If anybody else read this that wasn't in this class or didn't have the history that we all have, you know, from what we
Right.
learned in our other portion of the course, if anybody on the street just randomly picked up this book and read it, would it change how they see this?
I think a lot of
To them,
it would go over their heads.
it would still be an interesting story. It probably still had the surprise ending unless they were smart and knew about the model of
But a lot of it they
mystery
wouldn't get.
books and, pardon me?
A lot of it they wouldn't get.
A lot of it they wouldn't get as far as it being real history, but they would still understand that Crassus is an asshole.
Right. But they wouldn't necessarily know it was real. That's why we're doing this. There are over 7 billion other people on the planet, right? But only 28 of you are writing this review, because only 28 of you can write this review from a knowledgeable perspective. I have not given that assignment to the other 7 billion people on the planet. It's only yours. Go ahead.
I feel it's important to make up all the characteristics of the people, as well as like adding all the other stuff, like the good and the bad. So I mean, if you say like they're having hot dogs and ice cream, well, obviously he didn't do his research. I mean, it's incredible.
Good point. Excellent point. Excellent point. Who do you think Stephen Saylor wrote this novel for? Is it for a general audience? Is it for a more knowledgeable audience?
It's for a
I
more
feel like you
knowledgeable
can
audience.
cater to both, but
You could write it for both.
I feel like he's trying to
So this is a richer novel, you think, for people who do know?
understand. Yes.
Right. For the 28 people on
can
the
get more out of
planet.
it if they have a prior knowledge.
Okay, very, very interesting. He wants to sell lots of books, but it's going to be more special for... So you think he had you guys in mind when he wrote this?
Did you know him?
We have met him and had a long
Right,
conversation
I thought I
with him.
remembered you
Yeah.
saying that you had met him too, like you did our other author.
What's that?
We had a conference,
We told him that,
it was
actually.
it was 1998, it was the very first year we did this learning community. And
Wild luck.
we had a conference on Roman glass in Philadelphia, and
He was a guest speaker.
He was a guest speaker. We actually had our students give us questions for him.
Because they were at where you guys are at, like today. They just finished a novel, and we said, we're going to go see Stephen Saylor next weekend, and give us some questions. Talk to him. We gave him the questions. He had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
He was tickled that the class had read the
He was a
novel.
really good guy.
And, yeah, he's a nice guy.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know.
so he was thrilled that this audience was reading this book.
I don't know about everybody else, but I don't have a picture of him in the back of
Well,
my
that's
book
why I
like
don't
you
have
have in
anything
yours.
about
That's because we have the special copy. You didn't get the special copy.
That's why I couldn't have it.
Oh, there's a special copy. Okay. This book keeps coming out in different editions. Peter?
Yeah,
Or
I've
yours?
got, this is the one that we were actually using when we first started. I'm still using it.
Yeah, my pages
This
are all
goes
full.
on, this is back to 1998. And I like this one because it shows Roman villas, and you get the consistent color. And
Yeah, the first cover is the
the
best.
first cover is the best.
Did you? Yeah.
I
Well, could the novel have an educational value to interested readers?
Absolutely.
Sure, go read some Roman history. Absolutely. So it might be a motivational tool. I agree 100%.
By the way, will you help me remember when we get toward the end of the semester to come back to that trip in 1998?
Oh, right. It will make more sense then. Here's the essay question, or maybe not an essay question. Three of you answered this question essentially in 2 words. Many of you wrote very good answers that were longer than that. A few people who just made something completely up. But how did Gordianus solve the murder? And Caleb and Peter, you guys keep your mouth shut, and I can't remember who the third is. How did he solve the murder?
See, the thing is.
Oh, there it is. Well, is this an answer to that question? Did Gordianus solve the murder? He didn't. He didn't. Who solved the murder?
The guy Gordianus Finder found.
Alexandros solved the murder because when they're riding their horses down, Alexandros, and they're hauling ass down the hill, and Gordianus is riding right next to him, and they're jumping over the stuff. Who does Gordianus think the murderer was? It was Crassus. In the unraveling of the detective story, the mystery, Gordianus comes to the conclusion that the murderer was Marcus Crassus, so Gordianus was wrong. And it almost got him killed, didn't it? So I gave a lot of flexibility for those of you who talked about how the mystery unraveled and how, the right person was probably fingered, but is that ultimately the answer? Or it's one way of answering it, I think. Because you could also argue that he did solve a lot of crimes. He was the person who found Alexandros, right? He did find the one living eyewitness who could point out the murderer. So Gordianus did create the conditions under which the murder was solved, right? And the murderer was identified. So I think you could argue it different ways.
he's also not guilty.
You don't think it was? Whose idea was it?
Yeah, she
Right, but he accepts it.
Yeah.
I think he's reached that conclusion,
He's
too.
silly enough to believe them, but it's
Because there's the
his
cloak,
idea.
he's got the evidence of the cloak, there's certainly motive, sort of. And that's an interesting point of view, that you don't think he really reached that conclusion, that he accepted Ian Alypius's, oh, interesting.
But I think he did really help to persuade to get Alexandros to, because
Yeah.
if Gordianus wasn't there, I don't think that, because Olympias would have never.
Absolutely.
She didn't want to go, so he really, even though he didn't technically solve it, he was.
See,
Right.
and did
So without-
Gordianus kind of know that he needed Alexandros to be there? Because what if I'm not right?
Well, and why does Alexandros ultimately go? I mean, does Gordianus insist that he goes? I mean, he does create the circumstances, for sure. Yes. He puts it on the burden on Alexandros, and Alexandros, of course, yeah, is going to help save the lives of the other ones. And Alexandros and Olympias lived happily ever after, so, right. Okay. What we're doing in class here is what you should be doing on your own, thinking about aspects of the novel that stand out for you. Some you've already begun developing, and others you'll continue to develop as your criteria. Because criteria are simply aspects of the novel that we identify as key points that we want to evaluate. Okay, and remember what you're trying to do is evaluate it in its complexity, both as a novel, as a work of fiction, and that includes the mystery, but also for historical fiction. So the handout you've just gotten is what we're talking about on Tuesday. At this point, everybody should be using the novel itself as a source. You have to use the novel to provide evidence for what you're talking about. But I'm also asking you to go outside yourself and find and use at least 2 other sources, however you want in your evaluation. So let's talk about that. A credible, persuasive review depends on the informed opinions of the review author. That's you guys, and you already have informed opinions. You need to put them into writing. As we've discussed, you have the knowledge and understanding already to evaluate many aspects of Arms of Nemesis. You do want to enhance your review with research and use of at least 2 sources outside of the novel. You can use sources for any 1 or more of your 3 criteria. Like you could go to 2 other sources and just use it for 1 criteria, or you could use 1 source for 2, whatever. However you do that is completely up to you. The key is identifying the kind of sources that will help you and then using them effectively. And as you're doing this, the most important thing to keep in mind is your purpose. Remember that your goal is finding and using sources to support your own criteria evaluation of specific aspects of the novel. There are 2 very general ways that sources can support our evaluation, providing information or ideas. We'll talk about both of those. You will need to decide which kind of support you need and then look for sources that will provide that. Looking for and using information. By information, we typically mean detailed support that is objective, fact, and evidence-based in nature. To find this kind of support, we need to look for credible sources that provide specific details. And here's an example. A review of Arms of Nemesis might wonder about the realism of the lavish baths that Sailor creates for the villa of Lucius Licinius. Did any of you wonder as they're taking those baths and he and Olympias are painting all those fish and stuff? I mean, I always wonder, was that realistic? Even those wealthy Romans and those giant villas, did they have these incredibly elaborate bath complexes?
Yes.
I mean, why do that if you've already got the public baths? Why have, those got to be incredibly expensive and who knows?
Although, in their time, there's public baths hadn't been around.
Oh, so they're already getting into baths.
This is before that's become
Oh, so maybe timing is very important here. Public baths haven't appeared yet.
Become very popular, but it being something that's just down the road.
So you're sure you're sure Stephen Saylor just didn't make this up? So a reviewer familiar with ancient Roman social history would already know that public baths in Roman cities were very elaborate, but in a later period. So that raises another question. Whether or not ancient Romans actually built those kind of baths into their villas during the time period Stephen Saylor is talking about is a question that could test how effectively Stephen Saylor researched historical resources in his creation of the villa in his novel. What are we ultimately asking about Stephen Saylor and the historical aspects of his novel? Setting, characters, details like this? Is it accurate? And if it is accurate, if he's putting in accurate information, accurate description, accurate people, stuff that really happened, what does that say about him as a historical research? If it's accurate.
Oh, that he does his job.
He's done a good job in crafting this aspect of the historical aspects of the novel. Does that make sense? Okay. So, keep going. So you want to check, and that's what we're talking about here, we want to check Saylor on his historical realism. Has he done his homework? On the back of this page, I want you, and you can do this by yourself, or you can work with somebody you're sitting next to. Respond to the 2 following questions. First of all, what kinds of sources would you look for to see if Stephen Saylor's description of these baths is accurate? Or has he just made it up? What kinds of sources would you look for? Then the second question is, what keywords would you search with to help find those sources? Because first of all, you got to have in mind, what are you looking for? What's out there? What might tell us? And then second, what keywords would I use to help me find those kinds of sources? This is like 1 or 2 minutes. Talk to somebody you're sitting next to or do it by yourself. But flip it over. What kinds of sources do you think are out there? And 2, how would you find them? How you find them is with keyword searches, specific keyword searches. Would you...
Never mind.
Okay.
I'll tell you if we have time. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop you, just kind of see where you've gotten to, and we'll share what we got. What kinds of sources do you think it could tell us whether Roman villas had these elaborate baths or not?
A book called Romans on the Bay of Naples, A Social and Cultural History of the Villas and Their Owners from 150 BC to AD 400. Harvard University Press, 1970.
Where did you hear about that?
Right in the author's note in the back of the book.
Right. Stephen Saylor tells us some of the sources he's using. Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody wants to check on some of the social history components of Saylor's book? There it is. And these days, you know, I mean, it's so easy to forget about books because we have web resources and all this other kind of stuff. Sometimes books are easily available. Sometimes you have to enter your library and loan them if you actually want the book. But a lot of books, more and more and more, and you already know this, are being reprinted in sections or the whole books are on the internet too. So even if you can't get your hands on the book, look it up and see if it's available or sections of it are available online. Having the book itself is ideal, but if you can use, if you can find the printed source in another way, that's even better. Yeah, Saylor tells us some of the sources he's using, right? On the one hand, that's a good sign because it means he's using sources. What other kinds of sources? What else did you write? Other kinds of sources.
We would want to look at other things that maybe discuss Roman.
Okay.
Mainly concerned with, are there errors in Saylor's source in these sites?
That's possible too,
For
yeah.
collaboration.
Yeah, like was that a Wikipedia site?
Yeah, so one thing you can do, I mean, you can double check on Stephen Saylor's own resources. What else?
Look more to the architecture, because Mobius was explaining how it worked with how Orana set it up, and see if that's
Right. Lots and lots and lots of books about Roman architecture. Let's see. Anybody you know has written books about like Roman cities or anything? Like David Macaulay? Yeah, tons of stuff. I mean, one of the challenges with the Romans is there's so much out there. There's almost too much out there. Any other ideas about kinds of sources? Right, 3 a.m. There will be a show about this tonight. It'll call The Mysteries of the Roman Baths. History Channel, that's the best source of all, after Wikipedia. How about this? Archaeological resources? Why'd I write that?
What'd they find out when they did?
Yes, yes, this stuff is being dug up all the time. There have been archaeological excavations of Roman cities, of Roman villas. They're all over the place. What might these tell us? Like descriptions of archaeological sites. What could you look for very quickly and simply if you found these kinds of things? Whether or not ancient Roman villas from this time period had bath complexes. Yeah, you know, that could be a simple check. All these are good examples of different ways you can check on Stephen Saylor's historical homework. The point we're going to be trying to make with sources is you're not going for sources for all kinds of background and general information. You don't need that. You've got the background information about the Romans already. You're trying to do very targeted, specific resource to answer specific questions that you have. Okay? This is very different in some ways than the research you did for the first essay, where you're trying to learn as much as you could about the Phoenicians, the Romans, or Spartans, or whatever. And then you became more specific, looking into writing, government, city-states, blah, 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 blah. This is even more specific, okay? Which means keywords are even more important. What are some of the keywords you would plug into a search, whether it's a library search, a internet search, an article search?
History of Roman bath architecture.
Okay.
Ancient.
Okay, and what if I simplify that even more? Ancient, Roman bath architecture. Those are keywords you don't typically need the other stuff. What do you think about that? What are you going to pick up?
all public baths.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Okay, this is probably going to be a pretty effective keyword search. Other suggestions? What other keywords? What's that? Private, okay.
Yeah, I love that.
Why private?
Because that's my favorite bath.
So what if I write this? I do a search on private Roman baths. What am I going to get?
Brothels.
A lot about what Romans today buy to put in their bathrooms, right? So what do I always want to remember?
Ancient.
Ancient. Always want to put in ancient. Because you will get modern stuff. Crazy. Because remember, what is sites like Google search most of all? Commercial sites, more than anything else, the most popular commercial sites. So you've got to get past that. What other suggestions did you have? Okay, okay. Say that louder, Kyle. Right, because we are in a specific period. What do you already know is going to happen to the development of baths and bathhouses over the course of Roman history? They're going to continue to expand. They're going to be more and more common. They're going to become more elaborate, especially the public ones. So let's make it more specific, Kyle. What did you search 72, 73 BC?
Can you make it a question?
You can. Some search engines will search with a question.
If you put solved at the end, that helps you get an answer to the question.
You can. Yeah, some will work with that. But let's do that time thing. How would you craft time here? What if you put 72 BC? We're ancient Roman baths in 72 BC. You're going to have to hit that specific time, aren't you? What if you did this? Or ancient Roman baths.
During the late Roman Republic?
Okay, how about, I was thinking 1st century BC. You could try it, late Roman Republic. You know, if you can narrow that time frame down, if you get too specific, there's probably going to be stuff that's valuable for you that you're not going to hit. Keep it somewhat specific and create a time frame, or use a descriptive timing like the late Roman Republic. That's going to bring in more sources. As you guys already know, searching the internet is always a balance. It's back to Mama Bear and the Goldilocks and all that kind of stuff. You have the right balance of words here to get both enough sources, but not too many. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Does everybody see how we're looking for information here? We are looking for documented historical or archaeological evidence, data, information that's verifiable about the past. Okay? What aspects of the book would you use information to evaluate? Or information from sources? Historical. Why do you say historical?
Well, you're going to be pulling out.
Okay, yeah. Chances are, if we are evaluating aspects of the book from a historical point of view, we're trying to see if Stephen Sandler got it right? Either it's accurate, or realistic, or believable for the context he's put it in. And that's where information is going to help us. You know, historical sources, archaeological sources, they can tell us pretty clearly and pretty easily, well, either he got it right or he didn't. You know, if the Spartan revolt never happened, if there's no such place as the cup, if Romans never built villas there, that's objective information. It either happened or didn't happen. What were you going to say? Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Because that's very, very different from the other very general way that sources can help us. And that's in terms of ideas. Okay? By ideas, we mean subjective support. What's the difference between objective and subjective? Those two words. Objective means...
Maybe not.
What's that?
Very broad.
An objective
You're
statement.
trying to get your point across.
It's not a matter of opinion or interpretation. It's either true or false,
Yeah.
good or bad.
Okay. Objective is, and I'm going to simplify that even further, it's fact-based. True or not. Something that's objective. Either it happened or it didn't happen. Something that's subjective is the result of what? Opinion. Yeah. It's personal by its very nature. It's supposed to be. It's opinion, interpretation, judgment. How much of your review that you're writing right now, when you're done with it, how much of it is going to be subjective? I would certainly say the vast majority. Will some of it probably be objective as well? Sure, if you're evaluating, and especially if you're evaluating the historical accuracy or realism, some of what you say is going to be objective, okay? Most will be subjective because it's ultimately your opinions about these books, but you use some objective information to help you reach your conclusions. So your review is going to be a balance, but ultimately a lot more of this. Does everybody see this distinction? So here, when we're looking for sources, we're looking for information. We're looking for details. We're looking for facts. We're looking for evidence. When we're looking for subjective support, what are we really looking for? What is it that we're seeking from other people? I use the word ideas. What's that?
For them to agree with us.
Well, presumably. Or we may not have an opinion yet and see what someone else has to say, but ultimately we do want them to agree. What kinds of ideas can we take from other people to help us develop our ideas? Opinions, absolutely, they're opinions. Could you, I'm not suggesting you need to or should, but could you read what other people have to say about this novel?
Okay, now I can reason.
Sure.
And I did that because I didn't understand how I'm supposed to take information from here and cite it in my review. And when you read what I wrote, you'll see why I said that. There's like one place in there that I cited something, but for the most part, and not just this book, I read reviews of other books. Like, how do people cite information from a book in a review? And I didn't see anything cited.
That's because ours is academic.
Right?
When
So
we say,
I
when you're
don't
looking
know
about,
how to put it in there without.
if you read academic reviews,
Okay.
published reviews, you'll see them documented all the time. Because all you're doing is you're simply documenting the source. If you're using the novel, specifically, you're documenting that source. When you're using outside sources, you're documenting outside sources. Typically, a published review, like in a newspaper or magazine, is not going to go to outside sources.
See, and you see
Academic reviews always go to outside
Okay.
sources. So, we can go and hear other people's opinions. What kind of opinions could be useful to us? Ones that disagree with our opinions, such as an example.
Figured out who the murderer was by the 4th chapter. This book was no use to
Okay, so other people who have reviewed it as a mystery.
me. Or people who have reviewed it as a historical novel and
Okay.
found places that maybe they didn't have bats in their house at that time.
Okay, so you could definitely go to other reviews. You could go to reviews of this novel. What would be the value possibly of going to reviews of other historical novels, or reviews of mysteries, or reviews of any novels? Okay, you could find their sources and use their sources, just like Saylor's telling us some of his sources, Brad. Yeah, you could see the kind of criteria they pick. And that's the example I've got for you here. You know, maybe you want to evaluate, some of your evaluation of Arms and Nemesis is going to be as a mystery, but maybe you don't have a lot of experience reading mysteries. Maybe you haven't read a lot of mysteries before and aren't sure how to evaluate it. You could read reviews of other mysteries to see how they do that, to see what they focus on. And we've had a conversation here talking about different aspects of mysteries. What else could reading about mysteries, or what makes a good mystery, how else could that help you? Go ahead, Randy.
Well, I think that will depend on how you use someone else's opinion with yours. If you both are saying the same thing, I mean, if one person says that this place is terrible food, you're like, oh, maybe we should all eat the same thing. But if 10 people say that they don't have good food, then
That's how reviews tend to work today. That's what Yelp and TripAdvisor were all about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of the cumulative public review. So yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with going to others and seeing what they have to say. And look, and if you have plenty of other people, you can find out very easily what other people have to say about this novel. But let me extend that a little bit further. What if you want to go find out what makes any mystery a good novel? I'm sorry, what makes any mystery a good mystery? Or what makes any crime, resolution of a crime, or any ending to a mystery? Could you do that? Absolutely. You think that stuff's out there? You think there's articles and books out there by experienced mystery writers or academics who say, you know, here's how to develop characters in a mystery. Here's how to develop it in. Absolutely, absolutely. And frankly, students of the past have done that a lot. Well, gone to outside sources to see what other people say, often people we call experts, right? What do they say about what makes a good mystery, or what makes a good novel, what makes good character development? That takes me exactly to this example here. So let's say we want to evaluate Arms and Nemesis as a mystery, but we aren't really that familiar with the mystery genre. So we can look for sources that will help us, one, select a specific criteria for evaluating any mystery novel, because if you've got a criteria you could evaluate Arms of Nemesis as a mystery, is it likely that you'd use the same criteria for another mystery? Could you use it for evaluating Sherlock Holmes? Sure, if it's common to any mystery. For example, if the nature of the resolution, the solving of the crime, That's something that happens in any mystery, right? So that could be a criteria that other authors talk about, other sources talk about. Okay. And or explain why that criteria is important in a mystery. You could do that yourself, or you could get some help doing that. And or establish standards for evaluating that criteria. When we use that word standard, that's the measure that we're setting when we say something either works or doesn't work, is good or isn't good, is effective or isn't effective. And that's always personal. That's the standard you're going to establish with each of your criteria. If we wanted to agree on a standard for the ending of a mystery novel in terms of the resolution of the crime, what would you say is in your opinion, what is the most important factor in any mystery in terms of the resolution of the crime itself? Either the murderer is picked or the crime is solved or whatever. Okay, say it again?
That they figured out who the killer is.
Okay, that it wasn't just revealed, didn't just appear, that in the course of this detective novel, somebody figured it out. And to figure it out, you've got to have what?
Clues.
You got to have clues, okay? And presumably you have to have the reasoning that goes with those clues. So for Amber, it's the process of solving the crime that matters more than anything else. Because if you don't see the process, anybody watch it's still a rerun. And it's called Murder, She Wrote.
I watch it every day.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. I feel so sorry for you. Because it's still on a rerun. I don't like that because it's not very good with the process. She always, Angela Lansbury character, whatever her name is, she always figures out stuff kind of through gut instinct or some feelings about the person. The whole middle process. Sorry, I'm ruining this.
A lot of intuition.
Intuition. She's always solving crimes through her freaking intuition. There's no process there. I can't solve the crime.
Because you don't have enough
Yeah.
estrogen.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But yeah. Okay. So Amber's give us an example that could be used to evaluate any mystery. The process of the solving of the crime for you is really more important than the resolution itself, right? Because if you don't see how it was solved, does that make sense? Is that kind of what you're saying? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
it's so fun.
All right. So that's an example of a standard. Okay, so let's say you want to evaluate Arms of Nemesis as either an entertaining mystery. Who thinks entertainment is really the most important factor?
Like Janet Ivanovich.
Yeah, whoever. Okay, right. If I'm going to read a mystery, I'm doing it for fun. I want to be entertained. Or who thinks it's more important that the mystery is developed very effectively, kind of along Amber's lines, where all the clues have to be there. Ultimately, the reasoning has to be there. It has to be a well-plotted mystery that makes sense. Who thinks that's really important? Okay. Who thinks it's maybe more important that it's ultimately just believable? That you've finished it, and maybe that's kind of like effective too. But it all kind of fit together, and you finish reading the mystery and go, oh yeah, okay, I can believe that it happened that way. That's one of mine for sure. Okay. So in other words, there's different ways we can measure the effectiveness of a mystery. Flip your page over again. If you are going to look for sources that help you evaluate Arms of Nemesis as a mystery, what kinds of sources would you look to do this? What would you be looking for? We gave some examples of the historical component, and then what keywords would you use to search for those sources? Most people look like they're done. What kinds of sources would help you? What are you out there looking for?
Official reviews that need to do.
Other reviews of mysteries?
And I was also kind of thinking it's like you go on like an Amazon type review and see what other normal run on it.
So this could either be by reviewers, published reviewers, or readers themselves. What are they paying attention to? What stands out for them? What matters about mysteries to them?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. What other kinds of sources?
Other mystery novels in general.
So you would go read other mystery novels?
Or have written other novels I have there.
Oh, okay. All right. Now that's you, though. That's you, Nick. That's your experience. And you could definitely do that. You should do that. And I'm just thinking about outside sources. But stay with that. Could you go to other, let's say, mystery novels or mystery writers in some way?
Yeah.
What would you be looking for?
How they wrote it, kind of
what models they use.
Okay?
That's
What if
very
I just write this? Other examples from the genre
Yeah.
of mysteries. Okay? Yep.
What I thought of the same thing. What I thought of kind of doing, it was kind of like doing both. So reading reviews of other mysteries, and then the well-reviewed, like the ones that have good reviews.
Okay.
You can kind of use as like the mold, I guess, for a good mystery novel, and then possibly be part around with that.
So this to you, looking at both of those, would help you see what makes a good mystery novel. Makes a lot of sense.
And other authors hold symposiums and they have online chats of how to write a mystery.
Author
Even-
resources.
Yeah, Janet Ivanovich has a whole part of her. that
Authors, mystery authors have websites.
Yeah.
They often write
How to
how-tos,
write, yeah.
how to write a mystery.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real life. What would be the value of that, Caleb?
Well, you could get a perspective on how murders potentially happen in real life, the steps to solving them.
Could you interview some police officers?
Why not? Why not? So if you did that, that could help you assess whether Stephen Saylor has created really a believable, realistic murder mystery. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
How much literature is there out there about
Okay, yeah, we could go straight to the source. How about, I'm just going to write crime in ancient Rome mysteries. 'Cause that's one of the things I always wonder about. Is Gorgianus himself realistic as an ancient Roman private detective? Crime in ancient Rome, I don't know. What keywords would you search? Because this is what you're looking for. The keywords is always about how to get there, how to find it. And again, when you use keywords, you use them in a library search for books, you use it for magazine and newspaper articles, and use them for websites. They all work exactly the same way in keyword combinations. What would get us there? What are some keywords? Mystery novels. But if you look at mystery novels,
Oh
what are
my
you going to
goodness,
get?
there's like
Probably,
3,127,000.
yeah, I think you're going to get 12 billion hits about mystery novels. Make that more specific, Nick. Okay, all right. So you can see some examples and see what people have said and how they've defined good wording. Critically acclaimed mystery novels. What else?
How to write an effective historical mystery.
How to is going to get you a lot in this category, I think. How to write a historical mystery. How to what? How to what else? Based on what we've been talking about in ways of evaluating mysteries, how to develop characters in a mystery, how to develop plots, how to create realistic, what? Suspense. How to, you could think of the different aspects of a mystery, how to develop clues, how to develop red herrings, how to create villains and detectives. This stuff, I mean, there's a vast amount of stuff out there because it's a big genre, okay? And searching the how-to approach will take you to sources, hopefully credible sources that provide expertise that suggest how to do something well, how to do something effectively, how to do something realistically. How could you use those kinds of sources? If I'm going to read an article on how to develop the best surprise ending in a mystery novel, what am I going to learn? Hopefully. Which is what?
How to develop an ending to the mystery.
Well, certain techniques, right?
Yes.
How to create expectation.
How to put that
achieve
character in by like the third
Right.
thing,
How
and
to
then
plant
take 'em out of the
seeds.
story.
How to plant clues, blah, 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 blah. In other words, with the how-tos, we're going to experts for advice on how to do something like Stephen Saylor has done. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And we can use them to help us form
What's
our own
the model?
opinions and measure and evaluate what Stephen Saylor has done. These are just examples, but the key is to identify first, what is it that's going to help you? Are you looking for information-based sources? Or are you looking more for opinion, subjective, idea-based sources? Then, what within that is going to fit the criteria I'm trying to evaluate? And then finally, what are the keywords I'm going to use to get there? questions right now. When you come back on Tuesday, we'll see what you've gotten to, okay? Because your goal for Tuesday, that advanced draft, bring 5 copies. You need to have all background sections complete. You need to have 3 developed criteria sections. Be sure to use the handout in your notes from Tuesday about developing those criteria sections. And you need to have at least started on your overall evaluation and recommendation. Make sure you're using and documenting 3 outside sources. Because we didn't get to use the copy. I collected 1. Hang on, we ran out of time.
Okay.
You have 2 copies for yourself, and I didn't get there. Good question.
Okay. Just thought I missed something.
We're going to do more history stuff.
Yay!
This is my copy. Of Arms of Nemesis, so I don't know what page this is for you. There we are. Their case, they're using ivory strigils rather than metal strigils.
Oh, what page is that for you?
Well, that's my page 53, but I've got a completely different edition of the book, so
You would presume
somewhere-
it should be around.
somewhere in there.
I just remember it's the...
Okay, episode 2. Episode 2. All right, Julia and Agrippa married and got busy. Yes. Busy having beloved grandchildren for our now grandfather, Augustus.
I know, that's so gross.
What is so gross?
Nothing. I can't say that. It is like
Donald Trump is on his 3rd wife, the age of his daughter.
Yeah, I just...
All right, watch carefully. We're now around 15 BC, 14 BC.
My grandmother Livia could simply be patient. 9 years passed before Agrippa's services could be spared. Then he died, poisoned by Lydia. Tiberius divorced his wife and married Julia. Oh yes, my grandmother always got her way. You're getting soft.
What room are we in?
No, it's called...
What's the Latin for it? By the way, no, I mean, you're going to be able to see how Palestra, yeah. By this point, bathing is just part of society. There's no way you can get out of bathing. Back in Cato's day, you could, disapprove and have nothing to do with it. By this point, if you don't bathe, no one wants to be near you, so you don't have any choice in the matter. But you'll still see how you can have like optimate twists on it, even though you're as much bathing and massaging and everything else as anybody else.
You wouldn't last a 5-hour march if you were in the army, Oh, come on, throw it! Antonian throws harder than that. Gosh. Of course, if you lost so much stomach,
Death or surrender? I never thought I'd see my brother in such a pitiful condition. We spent 10 years in Rome. See how you feel. What's this, huh? Sulks? You're lucky. You get back to the army tomorrow. Very decent. Life for a Roman. Marching, fighting, building forts. So the best years of my life. You made the army's life bloody hell. I marched them hard, I drove them hard. But I was fair. I bet they say I was fair. Do you know what they really say about you? They say that your drills were bloodless battles, and your battles were bloody drills. Is that what they say? Really? Yes. You know, troops of that army I took across the Alps. They were men. You don't have men like us. Hey, we won some victories ourselves, you know. You didn't win them all. Oh, I know. But those two regions. 12 and 16. You'll never see that like again. Nothing wrong with them. The heat, cold, marching. I cursed them and I flogged them. I cursed and flogged the officers too. And if there weren't any tents for the men, I sat down in the open. They'll have to take the field again. You're all let me. Oh, Augustus. Keep me here as his work donkey. Says he can't spare me. I'm his chief out boy. I spend my time investigating the level of unemployment. Reorganizing the city fire brigade. Added to that, there's that bitch Julia they made me marry.
There we are on the third marriage.
Oh, that's impossible. Sometimes it doesn't speak to me for brains. Well, he was always very broody, according to Drusus, even as a child, but Drusus says he can always make him laugh. Drusus only knows his brother. He ought to be married to him. You know, Antonio, I'm very easy for her. Oh, that total drop-off. There's the stiffness and the joy. It wasn't before you started to work on it. Hey, Daydream, you know. Spent down there all day and I saw her in the same clothes with that. She's probably in love. But she's better luck than me. What was I talking about? About Tiberius. He never wanted to divorce Vipsania, that's the trouble. Always been stalking with him. I don't know what he saw in her. There's nothing on her. She's as thin as a stick. He has to spend half of every night in bed looking for her. It's true. If the sheets got a bit crumpled in the night, she disappeared until morning. It was lucky if they found her when they'd made the bed. She's not as thin as that. Well, I don't know what you call thin. But I saw El Valerius 2 days after he starved himself to death, and he looked better than she looks now. Well, I must say I could never see the attraction, and after 10 years of marriage, I thought he'd be quite glad to see the back of her. That's the trouble. He was always too glad to see the back of her. Julie, what on earth do you mean? It's very strange. You're much too sensitive a person for me to go into details. Julia, he does. Oh, but I couldn't put up with that. I'm not like you, Antonia. I could probably teach him a thing or two. What's the code? I can't get near him. Even snow will melt on a warm day, not him. I had no idea. Oh, he hates guys from Lucius. I mean, how could anyone hate my boys? They're sweet, aren't they? They're very sweet. What kind of one can matter about him? What fools we women are. I blame Augustus for it. He should never have insisted on the marriage. Don't blame my father, blame Livia. If anyone insisted, she did. She done the same thing 10 years ago when my first husband died. But Agrippa got in before her. I didn't know that. No, you were too young. That's all right, I've had enough. When Marcella died, she had everything down, but she was very close. She knew how I felt about Tiberius, and she was determined that he should marry. But Agrippa had the same idea, and at that time, Augustus needed him more than he needed her son, so she had to wait. And can she wait? God's time means nothing to her. Poor Marcellus. That must have been terrible for him. Well, to tell you the truth, Uncle, to tell you the truth, often crossed my mind that Livia might have had a hand in that. Julie, well, I might be wrong. But he was a strong, healthy man, and he never had a serious illness until she got her hands on him. I wonder about that one. Antonia, you're so innocent. Not so innocent. Ask Drusus. I might just do that one of these days if I get him into the right mood. He's very attractive, your husband. Why is it that when I come here with you, I must cover myself up, and if I come here with anybody else, I don't bother? Well, you should. I don't approve of all this nakedness. Oh, Antonia. Oh, I shall miss you when you leave tomorrow.
Let me make it clear. Antonia is little Antonia in episode 1. She's the one who was weaving. She's now Antonia, married to Tiberius's younger brother, Livia's younger son, Drusus.
He's right there holding the strip.
What do you see in Drusus's hand? Let's say it. 1, 2, 3. Strigil. 1, 2, 3.
Strigil.
Not so hard. The dirt's ingrained in the skin.
Goes deeper than that.
Oh, your gloom is magnificent.
Not so. All the same, I'll get my men to do it. I can't think why you were to do it anyway.
A man should keep himself clean, not have slaves do it.
How's he supposed to scrape his own back?
He gets his brother to do it.
He hasn't got a brother?
Gets his son.
He hasn't got a son?
Gets his friend.
And if he hasn't got a friend?
Then he should go and hang himself.
I've tried it. Better to have a slave scrape your back. I shall miss you. You don't have any dark thoughts.
Oh, nonsense. We all have them.
Not like me. Not like me.
Now, come on, you're no worse than the rest of us.
I'll tell you something, Drusus. Sometimes I so hate myself. I can't bear the thought of me anymore. You don't know anything about darkness, do you? Inside darkness. Blackness.
Ah, stop bragging. I could match you black for black.
Let me just pause. What room would they be in the baths?
The collegium room?
No, remember that you don't.
Oh, the Tepidar?
No, remember you go through the baths and then you go off to what rooms? Hypocaust rooms. Yes, so we're just rooms that don't have any baths, but they're all steamy and warm, and you can see that steam there.
Not you. Not you. They say the tree of the Claudians produces 2 kinds of apples, the sweet and the sour. There's never more true than you and me.
Now, what of our mother? Which is she?
Livia? They say a snake bit her once and died.
Hey, that's no longer funny.
I only cared for 3 people in my life. One was our father.
Yes, he was the noblest of us all.
Yes. The other was Vipsanius.
I was sorry about that. Why? Why did you divorce?
Livia insisted on it, Julia wanted it. Augustus insisted on it.
It's all the same. You were so happy, you might have refused.
Do you think the monarchy will survive Augustus?
No, I don't. Rome will be a republic again, I promise you that.
Then perhaps I did it all for nothing.
Is that why you did it? Is that really? But there are Julia's sons that come before you, eh? My poor brother. So ambitious.
Our mother makes me so. Oh, God, I miss her so. It's what did they make me do?
Oh, Tiberius. What's done is done.
Yes, it's done. I must admit. Sonia was the second. She's gone.
You understand it? Well, you know I feel the same way.
You should have my nature, not yours.
But why?
I'm the elder. I'm supposed to protect you.
Well, we protect each other. I know what's wrong.
There are many things you don't know. If anything should happen to you.
Now what could happen to me?
You would be killed in battle. Or you would fall sick and die.
And you could cut your throat shaving or choke on a plumstone. Tiberius, none of this is guaranteed a time. You're my lifeline into the light.
6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Now what will you do?
I'll put 2 litres in the pool and stop the corn supply.
Not bad. Rome can't live without corn, but you've got your back to the sea, and that's not good. Still, that's your decision. Lucius, your turn.
6.
Oh, these dice have got nothing but 6s.
6. Belgica. Belgic's mine.
Go on, throw it.
2. 1, 2. I'll take 3.
You can't, you've only got 3 legions left.
Julius did it.
He didn't stay long though, did he? Oh yes, what is it?
Caesar, your stats done. The noble Lucius Nero begs to take the seat.
Oh yes, you can come with me.
Can't finish the game first.
Later, we have a duty to perform, and duty comes before breath. Now come and say goodbye to the man who commands all our armies in Germany. And come on.
What did he just say?
Salt.
He did not say socks.
Salt.
Yeah, as in sulking, don't sulk. They don't want to.
Oh, salt, S-U-L.
As they don't, they don't want to stop playing. They don't want to go talk to Drusus, but he's saying don't sulk. It's not the Roman way. You've got duty to perform.
So you're leaving us. Yes, sir. I'm glad to go, I dare say. I go where I'm sent, Caesar, but if you ask me, yes, I am. Well, I don't blame you. When I was your age, I wanted to be with the army too. Look, I brought Gaius Lucius to say goodbye. We've been playing Empire. I've already lost Egypt today.
May I ask Bruce a question?
Yes, go ahead.
How many legions would you need to invade Britain?
4. Yes, and a great deal of auxiliary cavalry as well.
Couldn't you do it with 3? They're very uncivilized.
It's not worth the risk. You see, on a fresh venture, you must hit hard and quickly. If you have to send for reinforcements, it just gives...
I'll do it one day.
Well, I doubt it's worth it. There's nothing of value there, and people make very poor slaves. Now say goodbye. Wait for me upstairs.
Goodbye then.
You should read Julius's commentaries on his campaign in Britain.
I've read it twice. Bye-bye. Goodbye.
Don't move the temperance while I'm going. I know where they are. They're good boys. We'll have to eat them one day. Come on then. Come on, walk with me in the dark. I'm turning a traffic with you here. Well, I'll be all right to leave her commission. Oh. I didn't realize you was expecting again. Julia told me. It's a bit close together. Yes, well, what can you do? Yes, true. Anyway, we need more children, especially among the nobility. People aren't getting married early. Yes? I must do something about that. Have you said goodbye to Olivia? Well, she knows I'm here. She was a party member. Oh, yes. She worked so hard for me. Your mother is a very fine woman. I'd have given up long ago if it weren't for her. It is an immense burden to place on the shoulders of just one man. Yes, it is. It's really too much. Oh, I sometimes have a longing, you know, to be just a private citizen again. It's been 20 years now since Mark Antony died, and I took it all on my own, and I blame him, you know. I mean, what a fool that man was. The whole of the Eastern Empire was his. If he'd been a proper husband to my sister, things would be very different. Is it too late? Is it too late to lay down the burdens of all? That's right. You're just like your father. Always wanting the Republic.
Watch Drusus's face.
He was my enemy too at one time. I'll never be that. No, I didn't mean that. Be like it. You couldn't do better. I did him wrong once, you know. Oh, yes. I took him.
It's a pretty important moment, so I'm gonna...
I have a longing, you know, to be just a private citizen again. It's been 20 years now since Mark Antony died, and I took it all on my own, and I blame him, you know. I mean, what a fool that man was. The whole of the Eastern Empire was his. If he'd been a proper husband to my sister, things would be very different. Is it too late? Is it too late to lay down the burdens of all? That's right. You're just like your father. Always wanting the Republic. He was my enemy too at one time. I'll never be that. No, I didn't mean that. Be like it. You couldn't do better. I did him wrong once, you know. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I took your mother from him. And that has weighed with me over the years. We're a family. And we all work together for the greater good.
So note how much he talks about duty and family and
My
wanting
brother.
people to get married earlier.
It is tight is. Oh, he's a puzzle to me, like the Sphinx. It's like having a large dog lying about the house all day, watching everything and saying nothing. He wants to leave Rome. Wait. He never stops telling me. But I need him here, and that's a fact. I mean, what would I do without him until the boy's grown? Yes, still an unwilling horse. Yes, it's more trouble than walking on foot. We're not horses. He can't hold you what we want. And fancy, what does he want? He wants to sit on a rock all day. Rhodes or Capri and throw stones at the sea. Why, I don't know. No, we can't have it. Ah, here's your mother.
So, you're off again.
Yes, Mom.
You read this dispatch that came from Germany yesterday? Kabursky are giving trouble again.
I'll give them trouble enough. Don't worry. Shall we ever civilize these Germans, Drusus? I don't. Well, you know how I feel. When we conquer a people, we must be temperate. When agreements be broken, punishments must be severe. But look upon you.
Yeah, remember in this period they're finishing the conquering, especially out there in outer Gaul. So that's why you're still seeing all this military action. He's moving toward, making principle number 1 complete, but he's got to finish it up. Alrighty, we'll stop it there. See you on Tuesday. Everybody clear on the due dates for Pax Romana assignment? Got your reading? Joel, you came in late.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you get the due dates explained to you by anybody?
No.
Oh, okay, well,